a historical website of our town, an interactive one where you can, this is the history of all these places.
Yeah.
With interviews and
Repeat.
Definitely. Okay, so a historical website about your town. This is a great one. I had the opportunity, I don't know how many of you know about the National History Day project. And, well, I had the opportunity to participate in that last year. I did not make it to final, sadly. My project is a documentary, which I will never do again in my life. And I think a website is definitely a great idea because it allows you to pull together those elements of video and text and pictures. So you can go out and interview survivors, or, I mean, I would say survivors, just elders, I guess, in the town and ask them about their experiences. You can interview new residents or who've been there and ask, well, how has it changed or what have you noticed? You could write text, you could do research, you could go to the local library and follow books about it and find primary resources. There's just so much that you could do about the history of your town. And then what you might do is you would share it with other residents of the town and say, here's our unveiling of our website, please look at it, please comment and tell us, can you add information? And you might even have
Go away.
Okay.
Don't stand there.
I'll stay over here then. So, historical website about your town, right? Because so many people don't know that much about the city where they live. They don't know where the name comes from, or how long it's been there, or how many people are in it. And that stuff is actually really relevant to know, because when we come into a city, we always ask the taxi driver, oh, so how many people live here? Who's the mayor right now? And it's nice when the taxi drivers are able to tell us all this information. And so to have a website, have a resource to share that is a great idea. Any other ideas for projects? Yes?
Bike path that connects the
The bike path that connects the schools, some of the major developments in the area. Getting kids to go out and really participate, I think that's a great idea because I see a lot of good, many schools, are doing gardens and they're doing a lot of things where the students actually get out and they're digging and they're doing work, and I think that's a great idea. And actually that's a good one. Also, I don't know if any of you are involved in physical education, but the thing with PE is that a lot of people are thinking, oh, PE is really boring because we won't ever really climb a rope in real life, it'll just appear. So doing work like, say, digging for a bike path, it can be said that that's physical education. I'm hoping that would meet standards and stuff, but that would be cool. Any other ideas for projects? Yes?
Ballpark in the Heights.
I'm sorry?
Ballpark in the Heights.
A ballpark?
Ball.
Oh!
Frisbee golf.
I've never heard of that. Wow, frisbee golf. Interesting. Okay, so how do you say that?
Ball.
Falls Park. Okay. Falls Park. I'll have to remember that. So creating a Falls Park. There's lots of great things where if you see something that your community needs. Okay, so you can say Falls Park. My city, Redmond, Washington State, does now have Falls Park. So I could recruit some people and say, hey, we can build a Falls Park. Let's get our parents involved. Let's get our classmates involved. So that would be a great one. Okay, what are some other ones? Any other ideas or projects? Either something your community needs, or probably has to be solved by students, or awareness that you can build about an issue like the history of your city. Anything else? Okay, great. Well, I'm assuming that you all have some ideas resting in your head, hopefully from your enlightening conversations, and you may have also discussed pastries or something, I'm not sure. The thing that I really want to, I hope that you draw from this, is that students can begin making a difference in school. That we don't need to separate school and life and what you do in the real world. The fact that we have a real world versus school is a little bit sad, because really what you're learning in school should help you do things. Even if you're learning something that's one of those seemingly useless topics, like quadratic equations, that, well, of course every 13-year-old is learning about those ones think that they're useless, but you might want to re-emphasize why are you learning this, because it'll help you with this and this. School, a lot of it is about really long-term gratification, so I'm going to start, and in 12 years I'm going to graduate, I'm going to college, and after college, that's a long time to wait for a reward. If you have kids, you know that if you say, hey, let's get in the car and go to so-and-so's event, and in 5 years I'm going to give you $2 for this. A little bit, it won't quite work. And obviously the reward of school and learning is far higher than that. But a lot of students really need to see how they can have an impact while they're learning. And so that's an important thing. it also reinforces the idea that we have potential, that we can do things. And so if you're saying, follow your passion, you can do anything, then you should really allow students that to speak for itself inside the classroom as well. To get back to the technology front, I think that many people would agree with me when I say that the internet has changed the way that we learn knowledge. When I said this, my dad, the non-early adopter, explained it wasn't just the internet, it was books. And really, books did revolutionize how we looked at knowledge. Suddenly, instead of having to have monks copy out everything by hand, we would have thousands and hundreds of thousands of books to read. So the web is the printing press of the modern age. And if the printing press so many years ago made the value of information a little bit cheaper, then the internet has done the same thing. But too many students and teachers are stuck as those monks copying out books by hand. When we have so many resources available, why do we have to restrict learning about math to an hour of class time per subject, or history, or writing? By using the internet, by giving students long-term projects that allow them to combine things like blogging or creating a website or a documentary, then you also give us a sense of purpose, and you allow learning to surround us, not just in class, but also when we're thinking about our project, when we have ideas for it. Maybe even when we wake up in the morning, we might be thinking about it. That's how it was when I did these projects, like becoming an expert in Boldeds and Maynard. I got really, really into it. And you probably want to see your students having that passion for a topic that you're teaching. But I've done a lot of talking about innovation and technology and project-based learning. These are relatively new things, but one of the things which makes teaching effective, even beyond all these other things, is something that has been around pretty much as long as the profession. So think back to your best teachers. And this could be elementary, middle, high school, college, mentors outside of school. And like, what made them so effective? Why did I love this teacher so much? What was it about them? Raise your hands if you feel that the teacher that you're thinking of made a real personal connection with you, that they knew you or cared about your learning. So I think probably everyone will have raised hands, unless you don't have a favorite teacher, you're very unlucky. Then I would say that most of your favorite teachers are your favorites because you felt like cared. One of my favorite teachers, Mrs. Vinovich, was my 8th grade teacher, and she would check in with me and was always following, where I was speaking and watching my speaking videos, and she even bought 3 copies of my book, Dancing Fingers, which was very kind of her, and sent me one of her favorite books. So was always keeping in touch, was always in contact, giving me valuable feedback, and was very understanding. And so I felt that was really the most that you could ask for in a teacher, that they really genuinely cared about you. And it's that personal connection that you have to strive for in your teaching. Even though I've only met Mrs. Vinovich in person a few times, probably 4 or 5 because I go to an online school, the personal connection that was made over email, over the phone, and in person, that was extremely valuable. So with new technology, when it seems like everyone is living behind a computer, those personal connections can be made, not just face-to-face, but also through video conferencing, through blogging, through email, on the phone, all of these things. If you think back to your best teachers, they probably weren't the ones who read line by line out of the textbook and just were pretty much robots. They were the ones who took that personal interest in their learning. Personal relationships with students affect how well your students learn even before they come into your classroom. I watched a great speech at TEDx Rainier by Patricia Kuhl, professor of speech and neurosciences at the University of Washington. And apparently, she said, babies at birth are citizens of the world. That means they respond to syllables from all kinds of different languages, not just the one they're born into. That after constant exposure to one language, they become very nationalized and they lose that ability to recognize syllables. When that was counteracted, when American babies were exposed to Mandarin from a university research assistant, much like having a Chinese relative in the house, as she put it, the babies kept recognition of that language's unique sounds. But when they watched the Chinese on TV or listened to an audio program, no effect. It goes to show the importance of personal connections. And I think this also plays into with when we memorize things, when we memorize it for a purpose, or when we memorize it as part of a project, we not only remember the information, but we remember the story around it. The continual importance of making personal connections has been reinforced over and over again. Thomas Friedman, author of The World is Flat, was giving a commencement speech recently, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that if you ultimately want to make change, you have to get off Facebook and in someone's face. And while I think that Facebook is a great tool for change, we've seen a lot of things become possible because of it. The movements which have spread on Facebook and Twitter wouldn't have ultimately been possible without the humans behind them, without the let's go start a revolution, or let's create this event, or let's spread the word about tree planting. Although the newspaper clipping I showed you at the beginning of the session was actually created online using a fake newspaper clipping service, it's really handy when you want to trick people. I don't know if, did any of you think, what was your impression? Did you think it was real? I see some nodding. Maybe some of you kind of doubted it, perhaps, but so this is, I actually made it up to kind of trick people into thinking this was happening. But you can really learn a lot about it, not necessarily by totally reversing the roles, by having the students on the PA system and coaching the sports and giving adults homework. But I would like you to consider what you can learn from your students. Raise your hand if you've ever learned about something more than just a piece of technology from a student. I see a lot of raised hands. And for me, even though I do teaching or video conferencing, a lot of times when I connect with students, it might be my first and last time that I'll see them, I'm able to learn from them just by what they tell me. A lot of times in my video conferences, I'll do collaborative writing. So to make writing more approachable, I don't just give them an assignment and say, here, go ahead and write it. We start out by working together, let's write a story. And our last story that we actually was supposed to be a poem. I think it was a weird poem, but it was, I was thinking it was with 4th graders, and the poem, the narrative poem, was about a ninja who had to fight a dragon and got so scared that he wet his pants. So, kind of interesting topic for a poem. But what I learned from that experience is that there's no right or wrong. I wasn't going to say, hey, this isn't a poem because it's not about daffodils. This taught me that really, when it comes to writing, I'm not going to say, hey, we're not going to write about this, and I don't like this topic. I'm not going to read this out because it's way too embarrassing. No. And that really taught me something, because a lot of times I kind of restrict my imagination. No, I'm not going to write about that. That's kind of weird. So that really helped me learn from those students who I just talked to once. And when you think about it, the best relationships are reciprocal. What was the last good friendship you had with someone who never wanted to know what you thought? And while teaching isn't necessarily a friendship, but it is definitely a relationship, and it should be where you're open to learning from your students. It's easier to listen to someone when they listen to you. When I feel respected, I'm more likely to return the feeling. What is it exactly that you can learn from your students? Well, for a quick minute here, please turn to the person next to you and say, here's something I learned from this.